Number 1. I was around 14 years old. My parents and I lived in the Deep South, 3 miles outside a tiny little town in a low-crime area. The property my parents owned was a mile down a dirt road and sat in the center of the National Forest. We had no neighbors. The nearest home was over a mile away. No one lived down this road but us. So it had been a long, hot, boring summer day. We did not have air conditioning since my parents felt the need to save money. It had rained that evening and had cooled the air off. My father had already gone to bed. My mother and I were preparing to go. It was probably around 11 p.m. I had taken a bath and gone into my room and closed the door and took off my robe before getting dressed for bed. So I was sitting on the bed in front of my open window, enjoying the cool air. Suddenly, my mother, who had no concept of personal space and privacy, burst into the room and said, "Put some clothes on. You're right in front of the window. You never know who might be out there." In my best bored, long-suffering teenage voice, I rolled my eyes and said, "Mom, there's nothing out there." She ran to the window and closed the curtains and left the room. Seconds later, I heard what sounded like several male voices laughing. I threw my nightclothes on and ran down the hallway to my parents' room while screaming at the top of my lungs. By the time my dad was able to get dressed and get outside, whoever was out there was long gone. The next morning, he found cigarette butts underneath my window. My mom later told me that all that evening she had a bad feeling, like something was wrong, and our dogs kept barking, which is why she came into my room to check on me. Anyway, creepy persons outside my window, I don't know who you were, but let's not ever meet, ever. Thanks to you, I'm sort of obsessed to this day. I can't go to sleep with a window open. Number 2. Several years ago, in the mid-1980s, at a small neighborhood grocery store I worked at, I had recently become assistant manager at the store and was working until close by myself. Our store was in a suburban neighborhood and it was on the edge of town, meaning about 10 minutes to the right was a more populated area with a McDonald's and a strip mall, and 5 minutes to the left was going into rural farm areas. We were located in a part that was a mix of business and houses. We were the only business in our area still open, as we were surrounded by doctor's offices, a dentist, and an insurance office that closed earlier in the day. It was a Friday night, and a couple of the employees I was supposed to work with had either called off or went home early, if I recall correctly. So I was stuck by myself towards closing time. Not that it was a big deal, as our store was rather small compared to the big box grocery stores that were starting to crop up around the area. Business was winding down, and I was excited it was about 9 p.m., as I was planning to meet up with some friends at an under 21 club later that night. It was late fall, as I remember it was getting dark around 5 p.m. I was about to lock up in a few minutes and decided it was a good time to take a bathroom break. Now, our store bathroom was one of those one-occupancy toilet rooms where you had to lock the door when you were using it. There was a block window towards the top that was frosted so people couldn't look in, but I noticed the shape of a face pressing against the window. I let out a slight scream, "Ah!" and the shape moved away. I stayed frozen out of fear in the bathroom. About a minute later, I heard footsteps come by the bathroom door and saw the handle jiggle back and forth. My heart was thumping so hard, I thought I was going to have a heart attack right there. Then it stopped, and I heard the footsteps walk away. Now, for some reason, I thought maybe I was being irrational, and it was a last-minute customer who came in to use the restroom, despite the creepy face I saw on the window, which is in the side edge of the store property where customers don't go. so I mustered up the courage to walk back out into the store. I didn't see anybody, so I quickly locked the door and did a quick sweep of the aisles to make sure no one was in the store. I flipped the sign to say closed and dimmed the lights. That's when I noticed a pickup truck in the parking lot. It was parked toward the end of the lot where my car was, but it was facing the store and suddenly flicked its headlights on and off toward the store. I ran into our small office and was freaking out. I wanted to call the police, but our store owner had always discouraged us not to call the police, even if we were robbed, to just hand over the cash in the register. His philosophy was calling the police would bring negative attention, that the store was unsafe, customers would go elsewhere, and his insurance rates would go up. So here is a guy in a truck, obviously up to no good, and he is between my car and the store, so I can't even make a run for my car. And was it just one guy or more? I wasn't sure if he was signaling at me or someone outside. I couldn't tell. Would they break in and come after me? My heart was going crazy, and I was thinking irrationally. I was thinking of all the places I could potentially hide in the store, and then I got an idea. Our truck loading dock was around the back and was a way out. I opened it, and I made a run for it, running through people's backyards all the way home. I told my family, who did call the police, and my family drove back to the store in the middle of the night to get my car. There were no other cars in the lot other than mine, so the truck left at some point. The police were not sure if they had come to rob me or come for me, since I was working alone. After I left, there was nothing noticeably missing since the loading dock was left open. I quit this job shortly after, but I often wondered what was in the works for that night. Number 3. I live in a very rural, mountainous area of California, and at this time was working as a cook in a restaurant bar. I was 24 and not in the best place financially at the time, so I had been borrowing my uncle's car to drive to and from work. I worked from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. I know everyone in this area well, and I don't have a single enemy. I get along with everyone. One night, I had gotten done closing up the kitchen and decided to have a beer before going home. The bartender was talking to a fellow community member and trying to get him to go home. He was too drunk for his own good. There were some out-of-towners that weren't too fond of the locals' demeanor, and it seemed like it was getting intense between them. I just saw it as a local that I knew as being annoyingly drunk, but perfectly harmless. I had my beer and went out and got in the car. I could see inside the bar and spotted the drunk local, completely smashed. I felt bad for not offering a ride home, but was tired from work and told myself he'll be okay. I drive away. Mind you, there's no street lamps, no buildings. It's the middle of nowhere. Pitch black. Quiet. I realized about a mile from the bar that I should turn around and offer the local a ride home. He didn't live far, and it wouldn't be far out of my way to do so. I turn around at a muddy turnout and go back. I get in the bar, and I basically was short with the local and told him that I would pick him up in the morning and he could get his truck, sober, that I'll give him a ride home tonight. I was 24 at the time and a small-built female. He was a smaller-built, 35-ish looking male. I knew this guy had hit on me in the past, but I assumed he was just a 35-year-old weirdo who was lonely. I always shrugged off his advances. Anyway, with a couple minutes of reasoning, he finally hopped in the car and I took off, driving towards his home, about 5 miles away on winding mountain roads. I didn't notice anything really at first. He seemed drunk, quiet, mumbly. But not too long into the drive, he starts saying thank you, how nice I am to help him out. I say the usual, of course, no problem. Couldn't let him be there knowing full well he wasn't able to drive. This is where I started getting creeped out. I make a turn on the road he lives on. It's a long road, not many houses. All of the driveways are long, about a mile or two, so you don't see any houses. He gets really quiet, and it's dark in the car. I can't see him really well. I notice him look at me, though. I could see the reflection of his eyes from the dim lights on the radio. This is something I remember vividly. His eyes gleaming kind of green from the lights on the radio knobs. He was just looking at me. I, without returning his gaze, said, "What's up? Why are you looking at me like that?" He says to me,
"You're so pretty, and I never get this chance to be alone with you."
I shrugged it off, trying to play it cool, although I started regretting my decision. All of a sudden, he reaches over to me while I'm driving and tries to put his hand, I'm assuming, on my breast, but instead, his hands land on my shoulder neck area. I start yelling at him, telling him to stop. I slam on the brakes, in the middle of the road. No one is behind me. There's no one for miles. And I scream at him to get out of this car now! And I repeat it over and over. At this point, I had my hands off the wheel, and I was trying to push him out of the car. I had leaned over and opened the car door. I had never in my life realized my own strength, my own weak strength. This 30-something male was not budging against me. I notice him laughing, a really sloppy laugh. He says,
"You and I both know that no one is around."
I said to him, "We just left the bar. At least 5 people know where I'm going. Please stop. Here's a flashlight. Walk on home. I'm done with you tonight." He is quiet for a minute before saying,
"I don't feel like walking much."
The way he said it scared the living crap out of me. I started screaming, not like a horse scream, but like an ear-piercing scream. I knew the scream was strong and loud, and I had even hurt my own ears. Just hoping someone had their windows open somewhere off in the woods, but nothing happened. We struggled for what felt like minutes as he kept trying to come at me. This entire time, he was kind of laughing. He was drunk, so that was probably my only advantage. I was not. He was sloppy and trying to attack me for whatever reason. I pushed on him like I had never pushed on anything in my life. I pushed so hard that I felt my arms just burning with pain. When he finally gets out of the car, I slam on the gas, not even bothering with the door. Remember, I was headed down a long road in the middle of nowhere, and not on my road. It's a dead-end road after about 20 miles. So I keep driving down this road. I know full well, I will need to stop to turn around, but this road is like 1.5 lanes wide, and there's hardly any turnouts. When I finally do, I turn around fast, and in someone's dirt driveway, afraid of the car being still for even a second. I take off driving, knowing he'll be up ahead any second. I never see him. I never see him again. He was a local I'd known for years and saw frequently. I don't know if he took off to another area from embarrassment or what, but I never saw him again. I arrived home, shaking, red, scratched, out of breath. My boyfriend and our friend were at home playing Jenga, and I told them immediately, and they knew who it was too, and they went to try and find him. Never saw him again. That was last November. I hope I never meet up with him again. CreepyMina here of the WorstNightmare channel. Have you cast your vote yet as to whether or not you'd like to hear fictional stories read on this channel, which would bring us to 2 uploads a week? If not, comment below or go to the unwanted attention video from last week to learn more about it at the beginning of the video. Also, don't forget, give me a thumbs up, Subscribe if you haven't already. Share on your favorite social networking platform. Follow me on Twitter as WorstNightmare6 for advance notice of all uploaded videos. And always remember to stay safe.